For so many people, it is the hero's journey, recognizing that you want something more, that you can step up to the plate in a way that others can't. It is Neo in the Matrix sitting in a cubicle. It is Luke Skywalker as a moisture farmer just going like, man, I want something more than this. And then the opportunity shows up. Someone says, you can have more, you can be more, you can be challenged. And suddenly you're doing things that you can even imagine.
So I guess we could just start. We could just start now.
We just start whatever you want to start with.
Yeah. So
we've actually started.
We've been started. We just happen to call it now.
Okay.
But anyway, Curley, yeah, in person.
Wow, this is great.
Thank you for stopping by. That's originally from out of state coming out here. I don't know if you're welcome to say where you came all the way out from, but certainly don't have to. But you made a long trip over here. I know not specifically. We're not that special. You didn't just.
You are actually that special.
Oh, thank you. But you came out anyway, and I really appreciate that. And we've been talking about this for a while. How are we going to conclude the story? And so nothing better than an in-person meeting. So
yeah, I appreciate this. So as we conclude for now, because I might be back in the future. I'm not just going to randomly show up for anything.
Sure.
I might come back in the future,
right? Or
I definitely leave the door open for a
absolutely
episode in the future. But this has been a great series, and I appreciate having an opportunity to be a part of it.
No, and you've been a great resource too for me to learn from, because I'm always constantly trying to figure out what better approaches are there, not just in having conversations, because this is what this is about. We're having conversations with people every day. Well, not every day, but frequently enough that it matters. So I've learned a lot from just the short time that we've talked. But what I mean by conclusion isn't necessarily that we're never talking again after this, but rather the conclusion of the story of like you telling your side of the story. And one of those topics, like we were just talking just before we went on air, was specifically about what the end goal of everything is with therapy. And one of the things you mentioned to me, I'll stop interrupting here in just a second, is you mentioned that the end goal of therapy is to not be in therapy. What's that about?
All right. Contrary to many people's beliefs, like our goal is not to keep someone in therapy indefinitely. The goal is to get knowledge, understanding, resources, tools, so that they can grow or understand a problem and work through it, and then go out and, engage in life again. Therapists aren't going anywhere. So if another problem arises or if something similar pops up again, people can always come back to therapy. But, very often people think, if you go to therapy, it's something that you have to continue with forever. But you don't have to continue with that forever. So, one aspect of therapy is, helping someone identify the problem, get the tools to resolve the problem, understand like the nature of the problem, what to do if the problem comes back again. That's one thing that we ask, very frequently in therapy. Has something like this ever happened before? People might go, yeah. Well, what'd you do then? Well, I did X, Y, Z. Okay. Did that work? It did. Could you do X, Y, Z or something similar now? Oh yeah, I guess I can. So it can be, and certainly for things that are very complex, somebody might be in therapy for, a while, but for some things, people might actually be in therapy for a very short time.
So obviously every case is going to be unique, so you can't really say. I don't think generalizing is a good idea anyway when it comes to therapy. But the end goal, right? It isn't necessarily for them to stop experiencing some of the things that triggers, for example.
Sure.
Right. The idea is that when it does come up, that you're able to allow it to come out and feel what's there to feel. Correct?
Exactly. So with my own story is I have things that I can have in the past. I've had some very intense emotional responses to, and going through therapy, I understand those triggers and how they affect me and the impact of them. I can plan for them when they're happening. I understand it. I can let family and friends know hey, this is the experience that I'm having right now. And as I've talked to my clients in the past, and one of the things that I share and we reflect on and sometimes even laugh about is that someone responding to an emotional trigger, and I don't like to use this word a lot, but it's kind of suitable in the context of this conversation, they can seem, air quoting, crazy to people that don't understand what they're going through. Mm-hmm. So, very often, when someone has that 0 to 60 response to a trigger and it doesn't make sense, And it literally does not make sense. It's not logical. It's not rational. It's emotional. So people try to make logical sense of someone else's emotional response and insist that the emotional response must be handled logically. So anyone that has small children or been around small children, walk up to a crying 2-year-old and say, it's pretty illogical that you're crying right now. You really want a cookie. You had a cookie. You can't have another cookie until dinner. That makes perfect sense. We don't want to, upset dinner at all, or you should lose your appetite. So you should stop crying because you already had a cookie. That has never worked. It has never worked.
Yeah.
And I'm not equating us to 2-year-olds, but that 2-year-old is having an emotional experience, and all the parental logic in the world is not going to quell that emotional experience.
But it doesn't go, and I think that's the other interesting point is that, at least from what I've learned, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is when you're having a trigger, let's say, that's coming from a lot of times a younger version of yourself.
Sure.
And so that 3-year-old that cried about the cookies, it wasn't necessarily about the cookies. Maybe at the time it was, but over time it becomes about that you didn't feel heard, or that you felt ignored or pushed aside. Yep, disappointed. Yep,
ignored. So it's about like these deeper emotional feelings that hurt, and they hurt so much. It's easier to be angry than to say, oh, I feel ignored by this person that I care about, or rejected by this person that I care about.
Right. And then that's what then we equate to when they're older and you're having. And so then it's so interesting that you say that you wouldn't deal with that with logic, which, funny enough, me being a super, I'm sure I've done that to people plenty of times, right? The logical mind comes in. That also, funny enough, is there as your, in my case, as my tool to when things get difficult and I should be feeling things, but rather, what's the word? Intellectualizing the problem. Then you don't have to feel anything, and that is actually not healthy. And so that's funny, because that's just not funny, of course, ironic, but it just, as adults that don't learn how to do that, don't learn how to feel what they're feeling and address it, and they don't know how to handle it. So there's no way for them to help the child, really.
And so what happens when someone doesn't help a child? A child learns that they can't be helped, that they have to rely on themselves, that the world is unfriendly or hostile or can't meet their needs. And then actually that sets children up for all kinds of challenges later on. So, some people think, learning how to take care of yourself at a very early age is a good thing. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to take care of ourselves, but I'm saying, if you have a 3-year-old that is going through life like a 30-year-old, that 3-year-old has been set up for some significant problems later on. Because if you can't trust your primary caregivers, who can you trust? So it sets up this, template of distrust, and I have to take care of myself all the time. So I think we all know someone, or maybe we've all been that person that, like, the person that has to make sure everything is done. And that is an overwhelming way to go through life. And sometimes we're going to get to a point where we can't take care of something. So if your internal programming is, I have to take care of it, and you reach a situation where you can't take care of it, well, now you're at this impasse with, your internal self, and, people, collapse, or they implode, or they explode, or they freak out because, like, they have to do something, and they're in a situation where they can't do something.
It's so interesting. You just described my personal experience of growing up. When you don't have that, if I can't trust my parents, who can I trust? And then that mentality. It's not, obviously not conscious. It's subconscious. So it's interesting. It comes up in different ways. I'll let you know how it comes up in my world, because that is a very much the mentality that I had growing up, was that I had to grow up quick, first of all, because I did not have emotionally present caregivers. And so when that happens, for me, I had to walk myself to school. My brother and I, we had to both get up at the time we had to get up, walk ourselves to school. And we were like 6-7 years old at the time. Yeah. So, I was anyway, and my brother was maybe a year or two older than that. And so then, we had to get ourselves up, go to school, come back. Obviously there was food there, but we had to reheat it and prepare all that stuff to make sure that we ate. And so the adult responsibilities of a parent, right, was put on the kids. And so then what that impact that it had on me is I found myself in the Marine Corps, even in the Marine Corps of all places, because if anything, if you're going to come across responsibility early, it's in the Marine Corps. And so I was just talking to some of the Marines that I that I served with, that we had talked about how I was like, actually, now that I think about it, I was 23. I was a platoon sergeant in my unit, and I was 23. I did it as a corporal.
Yeah.
And so for me, there was things that were happening around the unit that I was like, it's not running as well as it could. And there's some things I don't like. And it's funny, it's in some sense recreation of me trying to change what I couldn't change as a kid, change my home situation in this case. And so I was like, I don't like the way that this is running. And the other guys here, in this case, they were like my siblings. Like, they don't like what's happening. And I'm the senior here in terms of the juniors. So we need to do something. And my subconscious, now that I think about it, it's conscious now, but the subconscious thought then was, if I don't do something, no one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
And that comes from childhood.
Yeah. It's your sole responsibility
Yes.
to fix this. No one else can do it. No one else will do it.
Yep.
It has to be you.
And that was that. Nobody told me that. Nobody ever said like, oh, you're not going to get any help. It was just a program in my mind that I have to do it subconsciously, because I don't believe that anybody's going to do anything, because in the past that's been the case.
Yeah. So anyone listening to this, at some point or another, you run into a micromanager. We've all run into a micromanager.
Yep.
Why do micromanagers micromanage? They will hire the best people. They go through like an exhausting process to hire people. So go through this process, hire the best people, and then not trust the best people to do the job. And it's like, that's got nothing to do with the workers. That has everything to do with what's going on with that person. The person that says, hey, you have a deadline for Friday to have this work product done. Okay, but they're checking on Wednesday. You done? How close to finished are you? Well, I mean, you gave me a deadline on Friday. I'll have it done on Friday.
Yep.
Close the business Friday, early, like what time on Friday? But they'll like check in again on Thursday. Hey, how's it coming? And that sense of control comes from someplace. And especially if you work and you've always like produced good output and things like that, there's no reason for them not to trust that you're going to get it done. Like if you never get it done on time, okay, well then maybe you're not a great employer. You need to be micromanaged. But for people that have been micromanaged and it makes no sense, like why is this person always checking on what I'm doing? It probably has nothing to do with you and everything to do with that individual.
But is there ever a time where micromanaging is healthy in any way?
Maybe surgery. I mean, I want the surgeon, if the surgeon needs to be overseen,
right?
But it's probably not as helpful as the micromanagers think. Are they actually increasing or decreasing efficiency? Do you have to stop and report on the report, or can you just keep doing like what you're doing?
Yeah.
And if it's micromanaging, then it's probably getting in the way of the real work being done. So, I mean, and there's a difference between like oversight and things like that. So I'm not saying at any time a superior checks in on someone that's a bad thing. So if you hand someone a complicated task they've never done before, it's pretty reasonable to kind of check in. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. But if it's someone that routinely checks in about everything with everybody, then they might be that sounds more micromanaging, and that's probably not because of the individuals working for them as much as it is with them, that sense of, being absolutely in control.
And so then in those instances, right, we talk about like those people's triggers might be they fear that they can't trust anybody. On everything else, they hit all the check marks. They're competent when they hired them, because micromanagers are probably, I imagine, going to be very picky about who they hire. What would they be really addressing? Like,
well, for vets and military, I explained this to someone that was in my chain of command when I was working for the VA, that for vets, active duty GIs, failure often equals death. So the idea that someone has failed is the equivalent of, well, your whole unit's dead and it's your fault. It's your fault that, these people that relied on you, that you care about, that you love, you failed, everybody's dead. So like GIs that hate the word failure, And it's not because everything is literally life or death, but we've been conditioned, and understandably so, to equate failure with life or death, because failure can so often in the military can so often literally be life or death.
Right.
However, it's not always. So now we have to learn, all right, is not having all the ingredients to make the kids sandwiches failure. You're probably not going to die.
Right.
Maybe it's a peanut butter sandwich instead of a PB&J. It's going to be okay. So learning to take a look at, and it's something I tell my clients frequently, only life and death is life and death. Learning not to treat every single decision like life and death is crucial, because otherwise that just burns us out. Creates, increases our cortisol, adrenaline. Imagine if every single decision you make to death is treated like our life or death decision. And certainly during deployment, every decision might be a life or death decision, but even that doesn't last forever. A surgeon in surgery literally making life or death decisions in some instances, maybe for the duration of the surgery, but not every decision made that day is life or death.
And so we know the facts that that's obviously that's the why, right? But the how, because as we talked about, they can't, logically you could know something, and I've experienced that personally, is that I know logically that I'm supposed to feel this way, or that I'm supposed to address it this way, but it doesn't change how it feels.
Yeah.
So what can they do? Is it a breathing thing that they need to do, or
it is breathing, it is awareness, it is intentionality. Well, what am I doing? Why am I doing? What is the outcome of this? So sometimes, if I'm involved in something and I can feel myself kind of ramping up, and it's maybe becoming bigger than it actually is, it is to step back, and it is to take a deep breath. It is to, working for the government and saying, oh my God, I got 138 emails during my lunch break. Probably not life and death. Certainly not all of them are going to be life and death. So rather than have that, intense response of, I got to do all of this and right now and things like that, is to go, okay, let me at least see what's flagged as very important. And as one of my bosses said, all my emails are important. If you read nothing else, read my emails. So I look for his emails first and then kind of work through that, because the reality is it can't all be life and death all the time. And if we allow ourselves, we give ourselves that permission to go, I can get to this tomorrow.
How much does it complicate things when there's ADHD involved? Because I have to imagine that a lot of times if everything feels important, specifically for me, I have a family history of ADHD. I believe that I might have it.
Okay.
I haven't gotten a true test of it. I've taken the computer test.
Yeah.
But that isn't sufficient to really.
So yeah, I recommend anyone that is taking any kind of test online for anything ever actually get diagnosed by a physician, a therapist, or anything, because it's so easy to see some symptoms, and there might be some symptomology overlapping, and it might look like this. But if you really have it, if you really believe that you have whatever it is, it makes a lot of sense to actually get a diagnosis, because then if there's interventions or medications or whatever, that can help. With ADHD, you might have someone that is very, very busy and getting absolutely nothing done. That's what that could look like.
Yes, that's exactly.
Always on the go, getting, 10 things happening simultaneously, multitasking, and nothing's actually getting done.
Right.
And then they put pressure on themselves to do more. They feel bad because things aren't getting done, or they're missing deadlines, or they can't keep the schedules that they made. So they might feel bad, sense of shame about that. And then they say, well, I got to try harder. So it becomes this, it can become this spiral of try, work harder. And really the solution is stepping back, really, not only ADHD, but there are other, some other diagnoses where the solution is not working harder. It's actually working less. It's like saying, I'm not going to do 10 things. I'm going to do 3 that matter.
Yeah.
And the other 7 will get resolved in one way or another, or they won't get done.
Right.
And sometimes we have to learn, everything can't get done, as opposed to taking on and overburdening ourselves with things that can't get done.
Right.
So if your to-do list is getting longer and your done list is not getting longer, then you're probably taking on too much.
And that's the burnout is probably the most recognizable aspect of it. At least it is for me, because I was filling in a manager role not that long ago, and it came up again for me about because I've been in manager positions throughout my life, and every time I've been there, it's like I get drawn to it, but then I get to it, and then it is extremely tiring for me, because everything is as important. Everything, in my mind, everything is exactly as important as everything else. And so if I can't set priorities, I got to do this one first,
right?
And then these are in the back burner because these take priority. I think that's where things get challenging. So what I started doing was, well, since they all have the same level of importance to me in this moment, I'll just do one, and then I'll just go from there. We'll do this one first. I'll finish that one because they're all important. So I'll just do one at a time to make sure they do it, because any other way it doesn't work. And that was my solution for that.
So part of the built-in trap that we have about things like that is we very often forget, we can ask for help. We can ask for guidance.
Yeah.
So that's someone else that's doing that job. Oh man, I got like 8 of these things to do at the same time. I've done that for 15 years. Do this one, then that one, then that one. Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense than someone being brand new trying to figure it all out. The other thing is, just because we can do something doesn't mean that we have to do something. So
Sure.
That idea of, I got to do all of this. Do you really have to do all of this?
That's an interesting point you just brought up. That goes back to that same. This is why I thought that you basically just described my upbringing when you were talking about earlier about the person that thinks they have to do everything. I can't say no. That's my biggest problem. Is when I get offered responsibility. Okay, that's my responsibility. I could probably do it. And the problem with that is if I do that enough, eventually I can't actually do it, and I'll have to say no eventually. And that was one of the, I think, the realities that slapped me in the face the last time I did that. Was I'm doing all these other things and I keep saying yes. And so eventually I'm not realistically going to be able to do what's expected of me, because I continue to pile on things and I can't say no.
Right. So ultimately you only have 24 hours a day. Ultimately, we all do. And part of, the military teaches us to accept greater authority and responsibility and move up. Like, that is part of the game. So we're programmed for that. Accept greater responsibility and authority. What's not as obvious is letting go of those lower responsibilities and authority. So as you move up, some of the things that you used to do, well, they're no longer your responsibility to do them. They're somebody else's responsibility to do them. And we have to learn to trust them to do that thing. Just as we're being trusted to do a new thing, trust them to do a new thing. That is a challenge. It can be a trap for someone that believes they have to do everything. Because if you believe you have to do everything and you keep climbing the ranks, eventually you are going to burn out. You're going to be exhausted. You can't do everything. And the other thing is learning to give people the permission to fail. And I tell people, far better to skin your knee than break your leg. So if a kid's learning to roller skate and you hold them up and they never ever fall or whatever, okay, maybe they learned how to skate. But if you give them some skates and you send them outside and they fall down a couple times and then they're up there, that's far better than breaking their leg later on, because they never learn to skate without that framework of success around them. So because we don't want people to have a broken leg, we don't allow them to skin their knees. So allowing them to have those experiences so they learn from them versus protecting them from those experiences that prevents them from learning from them.
So that gets into the next question I have: helicopter parents.
Okay.
I've seen a handful of those when I was growing up. What does that is that a similar mindset? Does a helicopter parent come from not having present parents?
Well, helicopter parenting, for the parents' mindset, I don't think anyone wants to see their kid fail.
Sure.
I mean, and I've worked with helicopter parents, and it's very interesting working with helicopter parents, when their kids go to college, because that's what, you don't get to be a helicopter parent at college anymore. So
You'd be surprised.
they try. They basically try.
surprised.
But so it's reasonable to not want your kid to fail, but we learn from failure. Like, failure is part of our success process. So kids that never fail, we don't know how much they're actually learning. And in the helicopter parents, what they don't understand is they cannot hover around their kid indefinitely. So you have parents that, instances where people reported, like parents trying to negotiate a raise for their kids at their jobs and things like that. And it's like, well, that's undercutting everybody's authority. When I done academic advising, I have parents come in and tell me what their kid was going to do and not going to do. And it's like, well, this is an adult and this is their decision. And I actually need you to leave my office right now so I can have this adult to adult conversation with this person. And they were shocked, and because like, well, this never happened in high school. Well, your kid's not in high school anymore. So the helicopter parenting, it seems to me that they don't want their kids to fail. I understand that. I don't think anyone wants their kids to fail, but they don't understand failure is part of the success process, and that we actually need to have failure if we're really going to grow, as opposed to being in this bubble of protection that the world won't always give them.
Yeah. And then, so then that is obviously they want them to succeed, but ultimately, what was it? There was something I heard about, as it relates to helicopter parents. I think it's like the anxiety. There was such a great phrase. The helicopter parents come from a place of anxiety of not having. They don't know how to do that specific thing.
How they perceive, like how they believe they'll be perceived if their kid fails.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
What does that mean to them? And especially, for anyone that has some narcissistic characterological traits, well, they want their kids to excel at everything, not because they want the kids to excel, but those are kids. If the kid is excelling, it means it looks good for them.
Sure.
So there are multiple factors on why someone might be a helicopter parent, but the bottom line is like, well, what is this doing to the kid that has this parent, fighting every battle for them, or bulldozer parents that decide that they're going to make every problem in their kids' lives go away and give them like this, clear channel towards everything. Well, those kids don't learn how to resolve problems. They don't learn, how to gather resources, even to identify problems. So the first time they're challenged by something, they just stop. They don't have problem solving skills. So they stop. A kid that has somebody solving all the problems for them, they come home and the door is locked. They don't know what to do. Like,
yeah.
Well, can you go check the back door? Oh my gosh, I never thought of that.
Right.
Is there, just like all these other things, because they've had someone solving problems for them all the time, they don't learn how to solve problems.
So we talk about all these different scenarios, helicopter parenting, perhaps a mix of ADHD, perhaps like some level of, maybe the complete opposite, complete neglect, right?
Sure.
Didn't have present parents. It's interesting, the dynamic of somebody who grew up. I've some of my closest friends grew up with helicopter parents, one or two, and me being the opposite. It's almost like opposites attract in that sense.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that experience that, and what's interesting is it creates the way that the kids respond to that is either I don't trust myself, right? Like, I'm going to do it wrong.
Yeah.
And then my response is, no one's coming to help you. So you have to figure it out. There isn't maybe somebody else.
And there's probably someplace.
There's probably somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And so that I think is the end. That I think maybe that is somewhat of the goal then too, of therapy is to find middle.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we're on one extreme or the other for survival, right? Because that's how we survive that environment. Because if you can't control your environment, the only thing you can do is control your response to it.
Exactly.
So then, with that being the end goal is essentially to, when those things come up, to not live in it anymore, right? To because in some ways when I moved out, I didn't realize it then, but I was still living like I did when I was at home. My room, I grew up with my brother, so my bedroom was not my bedroom. It was a shared bedroom. We were there just to sleep.
Right.
Where I spent most of my time was the living room. So when I moved out, I didn't have to do that no more. I had my own room, but my room was still the only place I really went was to sleep, and I didn't spend time in my room like other people do that had their own room, and that was like their quiet spot, the spot where they feel most comfortable. But for a long time, the living room was where I hung out, and that was many years into my adulthood already, and I didn't live there anymore. I didn't have to live that way anymore. And I think part of that goal is to train your nervous system to not be there anymore, correct?
Well, sometimes it's even recognizing, why am I living the way that I'm living? It is. It's, we, just, driving around today and just like noticing, oh man, people are like driving differently than, where home is for me now. And it's, which is fine. But, when I'm here, it's not long before I'm driving like everybody else. Before it's like, which is maybe not good for me. But it is that idea of, we're trained to do certain things, we respond in certain ways, and it takes a degree of insight and introspection to go, oh, why am I doing this? Like, where is this really originating from? Mm-hmm. Very recently, I taking a look at my key ring, and I must have had like 30 keys on that thing, and I knew what like 3 of them were for. And I was like, why am I carrying around all these keys? And I thought about it, and because my dad carried around a lot of keys, and God knows if he even knew what they were for. He probably knew there were like 3 on his key ring, and no one told me I had to. It wasn't like, hey, you got to carry around a lot of keys. I never got that. But like, I saw that, and it's like, well, when you grow up and you're a man, and you carry around a bunch of keys. So like, that was never a stated message, but it was a message that I got, that I interpreted for myself, and that I implemented, and that I, recognized like, okay, well, this is maybe ridiculous, right? and I let it go. So if we can sit down, and this is the beauty of therapy, it can help us develop the insight to not only recognize what we're doing, but to be willing to explore, why am I doing it? Right. It might make perfect sense. It might be completely reasonable, or it just might be, oh, well, I saw someone do that when I was a kid, or someone told me it was the most important thing ever. Right. And I am personally amused when I find that, oh man, I'm doing this because someone very important to me did this or said do that. Right. In the military, we have a lot of people that are important to us. That like, hey, never ever do that. Sir, yes, sir, I will never ever do that. We don't know why, but it's like, never ever do that. Years later, we're doing that. It's completely fine. We've been told never ever do that. So I talk to people that are like, it's like, oh man, dude, I still can't walk with my hands in my pockets, or I can't walk on grass, or I have to have a hat or not a hat or whatever, because someone that was very important to us said never ever, always, whatever. And that becomes part of our programming. And we don't go through a process of saying, do I still need to follow that programming? And typically we don't. Is that programming still serving me? It's not. Did that programming prevent anxiety and problems and even, some type of punishment while I was on active duty? It did. So it had value then. Absolutely had value then. But if you go outside and walk across a lawn, I don't think anyone's going to yell at you. I don't think anything like that's going to happen.
I did that for a long time. I didn't walk on grass for a long time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's okay to walk on the grass, go to a park, walk on the X. It's totally fine.
Yeah. But that just comes to show how deeply ingrained some of these behaviors are. Sure. That you were 18, 19 years old when you learned not to do that. Why is a 35, 40-year-old still not walking on grass? Like that has more to do with logic. That has less to do with logic than anything else, because logically that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, you're right. Logically, it doesn't make any sense, but it feels good.
It feels right.
So we are very frequently responding emotionally when we don't believe we're responding emotionally. And, for me, working with a lot of vets and saying like, hey, these are emotional responses. No, they're not. It's like, why are you getting angry? It's an emotional response, and learning, like, okay, we all go through boot camps, our various boot camps, and it is a very intentional process to take this, various groups of like young adults, and as quickly as possible, meld them into a cohesive unit. Like, that is the purpose of boot camp, so that you follow orders, that you understand like the history, you know how to do things. It is that introductory experience, and you have to make it as fast as possible and to make it as thorough as possible. So there is a lot of intentional, emotional, psychological breaking people down to build them back up, to challenge them to learn, well, you can do these things. In some cases, you will do these things, and these things that you thought you couldn't do, you definitely could do. But those things that are disruptive to order and discipline, yeah, they hammer those out of people very, very quickly.
It's very interesting, and maybe you could help me with this. I noticed that so boot camp in some sense is to strip individuality in the way that you've described, to make it so that you are a part of the group, and that is the most important thing. And so that means that's why, for at least in the Marine Corps, you speak in third person. There is no I, there is no we, there is no they. It's this recruit, that recruit, those recruits. So what's interesting though is the programming, as they say, like that. There are some guys, for example, I was one of the guys that, like, I downloaded everything. Like, I became exactly what it is that they told me they wanted me to be. And the programming is, to this day, a lot of that programming is still what I'm running.
Okay.
And so, but then there's guys that who I'm good friends with, right? We were chatting about that too. And it's like, the moment I came home from boot camp, I was back to being who I was before. So it's interesting in some senses. Some people fought the programming.
Yeah.
Like, some people did not want, and that to me is mind-boggling, because from my perspective, I wanted to be there. And so I wanted, like, I thought that there was I could become a better version of myself by doing that. And so I bought into, whatever it is. Oh, if that's what a Marine is, then I'm going to do that. But then there's some people that go in and it's this like rebellion. There's this refusal. What is that about?
We keep what we value, not necessarily what is valuable. So we keep what we value. It is interesting, if you go to someone's house and you tell them you have 60 seconds to grab whatever you can in this house, and after that, it's all going to be destroyed. You'll find out in an instant what they value, not necessarily what's valuable. So for you, that programming had value to it, so you kept it. For others, it may not have been valuable for them, so they didn't value it, so they let it go. So if the programming makes our lives easier in some way, it provides order and structure where there wasn't any, or gives that sense of safety or comfort or, something for us, and we tend to keep it. If it does not, if it is, chafing at our identity and we can't wait to get away from it, then we don't value it. It's not valuable to us. So we can determine what people value by what they keep. And just because someone keeps something doesn't mean that it's valuable. I mean, you go to someone's house and it's like, oh man, how long have you had that, plastic palm tree? Oh man, I got this when I was 5. It is the most important. Well, it's a plastic palm tree. Probably has little actual monetary value, but they value it. So they keep it. So when we have experiences that we value, that we feel like, hey, this has made me better, or this has increased my opportunities for success, or given me structure and identity, we really hold on to them. And for some people, and I think, anyone that is listening to this, if you're in the military or have been in the military, you may have met someone that said like, man, they have no identity except their military identity. And that's probably someone that has some work to do, if they choose to do it, about establishing like who they are versus like who their military identity is. So that's why we hang on to that. We really do hang on to things that we value.
And it's interesting because for me, I was one of those that was, as you said, like the military identity. I threw everything away. Like I was like, I don't want anything to do with who I was before. And that has a lot to do with the way that I felt growing up. right? Was like being felt like I was not really noticed. Nobody really cared. Feeling small, like that was a thing that I experienced growing up. So the Marine Corps, in some sense, and a lot of people actually, when they go to the military, it comes from a perspective of they either didn't have much to their name, they wanted to be something bigger than what they felt.
Sure.
And so that was something that was true for me. Was I felt very, very much unimportant, small, not cared for. So then the Marine Corps gives you this. That's where that comes from. The dumping of what I used to be or who I was. And what's interesting is that at some point or another that fails. At some point or another, just being in the middle, just being the guy that does that thing. At some point, it becomes an issue operating normally in life. And that was exactly what I found out. And so that's the interesting part, is for me, that's the why as to why I held on to all that stuff. But then the other people that came into the military that maybe already had a developed identity, and why did they go in? Why did they feel the need to go become Marines? And
well, everyone has their own internal itch or reason for joining their prospective branch. For some, it's skill set. Others, opportunity for education, travel, things like that. Some people are like, wait, you'll send me to live in like 9 different countries? Sign me up. I'm like, oh, you'll send me to school and all I have to do is go through this amount of time and, sign me up. So I'm like, oh, you'll teach me how to be whatever. And if I did this on my own, it would cost this much and I can get this like skill set and go. Absolutely. Like, sign me up. I mean, I know some branches of the military, particularly have had huge issue keeping, people in IT. Oh yeah, I got all of this training and Rockwell is going to pay me 18 times what you're paying me. So, so there are like lots of reasons that people can join, and that aspect of military identity, it's important. It is a shared identity. A lot of vets, part of the readjustment a lot of vets go through is that identity doesn't have to mean to others what it means to the vets. So if the military identity is becoming a big part of your core identity, it means a whole lot to you. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that to others. And sometimes there's some real friction around that. Like, well, why don't they care the way that I care? And I work with so many vets that said, because they don't have to. And the irony is we wear these uniforms so they don't have to. Like, that's the, a bit of, I'm trying to not lapse into a whole lot of profanity here, but it screws, it screws people's minds up, big time, that how could they not care the way that I care? And it says, because they don't have to, and we actually protect their right not to care the way that we care.
That's such a great point. But and also too, those guys that go do it, they have their own reasons for why they're going to do it, and that's a personal matter. But at the end of the day, there's so many different experiences you can have. I think for me, I have my own. It's funny. I'll tell people my experience. The Marine Corps, though, is pretty consistent in the things that you experience. Some of them might have experienced better units than others, and so then they had better leadership. Others had more toxic leadership, whatever the case is. But there's so many experiences that those individuals can have, and it's almost like each branch has like its own personality. Yeah. And so what suits their personality best? And so it's interesting. I don't know, you'd have to speak for your experience in the Air Force, but for me, there's obviously a lot of things I could talk about, like, oh, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. But I can't think of how I would have been able to believe in myself enough to do what I'm doing now if it wasn't for that phase of my life. Because the Marine Corps was also not only like a personality that I liked better than my own at the time, but it was like the biggest confidence boost I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
It was if I could do that,
Yeah.
what else, am I able to do? I can't speak for anybody else. I'm not in any sense like the recruiting type, but if you're going to do it, if you feel like you want to do it, there's so many experiences you could have there's so many things to learn if you go that route.
Yeah.
And it is a challenging one, I think, regardless. But if you want to learn, if you want to learn things about yourself and about the world, I think that whether you believe in what the military does politically, or if you believe in all the politics of when we go to war and all that stuff aside, because ultimately we don't choose that anyway, what wars we fight or don't fight. But the decision to go there, to go to the military and to seek that challenge out, is an opportunity to see what's really, for lack of a better word, like what you're made of. Like that's the way that
it is very much, I won't say for everyone, but for so many people, it is the hero's journey. It is recognizing that you want something more, or you want the challenge, or that you can step up to the plate in a way that others can't. And working with my clients, I pointed out, well, it is, Neo in the Matrix sitting in a cubicle. It is Luke Skywalker as a moisture farmer just going like, man, I want something more than this. It is. And then the opportunity shows up. Someone says, you can have more, you can be more, you can be challenged in ways that you never thought you'd be challenged, and stepping up and living up to that. And suddenly, like, you're doing things that you couldn't even imagine a year ago. I mean, you're in far-flung places, you have all this responsibility, like your world has changed immensely, even beyond what you anticipated. And the challenge that comes after that is, well, what do you do when you step away from that? Now, how do you stop being a Jedi once they turned you to a Jedi? How do you step out of the Matrix, so to speak? Once you've discovered all of these things, I am certain I wouldn't be doing any of the things that I'm currently doing if it wasn't for the time that I spent in the Air Force. I mean, I sure would be okay, but I wouldn't be doing the things like the Air Force, even though I didn't know it at the time, was like preparing me to be a therapist, was preparing me to be a professor at a university. I didn't know that,
yes,
but I was being prepared for that. And if I hadn't had those experiences, then I might not be doing these things. I most certainly wouldn't be doing these things.
You just reminded me of what I was intending to say there. It exposes you to the darkness of the world. And so I think that's such a vital lesson, especially for me. I experienced a lot of darkness early in my life. So the Marine Corps kind of like brought me into, like, it not only said, yes, there is darkness, and let me show you how to get through the darkness. Like we live here. We fight here. Like, we run this space.
Right.
And to go from, I'm afraid of that darkness, I know that it's there, but I don't see another way than to face it head on.
Right.
The Marine Corps was that for me, where it's like, oh no, there's darkness.
Yeah.
Let me show you. No, we operate here. This is this, and then you join a bunch of other guys that are in that space too. And so suddenly I'm not there alone. Like, it's not this thing of like of I'm afraid of it because, like, what if nothing's there and I'm the only one there and I can't fight it. And then to go from that to stepping directly into it, no, like, this is reality, this is life. Yep. But we can get through it. That's the ultimately the lesson that I got out of that. Because the darkness of the world isn't just from a sense of like war, like just in general, there's a lot of a darkness in our reality, but it's not impossible to conquer. It's not impossible to live your life in a successful manner. It doesn't have to take over your life.
Right.
And so to me, that was coming from a very, for me, dark childhood, dark adolescence of feeling alone, feeling small, and verbally and emotionally abused by a caretaker. Like that, to me, to go from that, like just experiencing a lot of, like, parents divorced very young, my siblings not living with me suddenly, like there's a lot of things that as a kid I had to deal with, a lot of darkness of what's the real world very young.
Right.
I wasn't protected from that. So that's the route that going to the Marine Corps gave me was, oh no, yeah, there's a lot of darkness, but you can conquer it.
Yeah. As I'm sitting here thinking of some different types of therapies that I've done. So I used to do cinema therapy, which was for me a lot of fun because I've always been a big movie geek. In a cinema therapy, you take various scenes from movies and people kind of explore their life through cinema, because sometimes it's easier to talk about a movie than it is to actually talk about like real life. So, which is probably one of the reasons I make so many movie references. But I was working with my group, and we were taking a look at the end of the Lord of the Rings movie, Return of the King. I think it was the one where, there's been this grand adventure and fought a dragon and evil and everything. They've gone out, this group of guys have gone out and they have fought the evil in the world. And they've seen the evil in a way that the people in their village back in the Shire will never know, never understand it. But they know it's there and they know that it can be fought. So we have an experience that's similar to that. Like, we see the world for what it is. I constantly tell people I need to see all of it, not the best of it, not the worst of it. I need to see all of it. And I agree, not everybody does, but I do. I need to see all of it. And I know I can't fight it all, but I can fight. I can help, but I can't do that fighting. I can't do that help if I don't see it. It's that willingness to see it all is part of that draw. I think that is that part of that hero's journey. And it's okay that everyone doesn't get that call. Like, everyone shouldn't be a whatever. Everyone shouldn't be an airline pilot. Everyone shouldn't be a firefighter. But for those that can say, yeah, I can do that for a while. I can be the person that can be, hammered and, malleable to be in a specific shape and adopt this type of identity and go places and do things. And, for a while, because we're constantly passing the baton. There are people right now, basic training starting for them right now, getting yelled up, put them up, put them down, getting bad haircuts, screaming and yelling, wonder why they did this. And one day they're going to be passing that baton to somebody else. So we're constantly passing the baton, but we're passing the baton to people that are saying, yeah, I can do that. And not even sure how well they can do it, but they can do it.
Right.
And I agree, it is not for everyone.
That's true.
It's not. So sometimes when people will tell me, oh, I should have, could have, whatever, I go, you did what was good for you. Like, I don't shame anyone or say, well, everyone should have or whatever, because I don't believe that everyone
it's not
should.
For everyone.
It's not for everyone. And there are ways that people can serve that aren't necessarily connected to the military. I mean, I believe that everyone can probably serve in some way, but everyone shouldn't be in the military. But that idea of, fighting the darkness, that is part of it. I mean, we're not told. I mean, it's not in the contract. Oh, yeah, by the way, you fight darkness.
You're fighting darkness.
Man, I don't know about this, but you do wind up fighting the darkness, and we don't know when that fight's going to happen. That's the other thing.
Yep.
Like, the darkness fight can happen at any time. And some people are like, hey, I'm signing up to fight this darkness. And they go, well, you might be fighting that darkness over there.
Yeah.
So even if we think we know, we don't actually know.
Oh man, that's I could go on forever about that topic. I think the hero's journey is a great way to put it. Is that, but it's not even, like I said, it's not for everybody. Not everybody should be in the military, just like not everybody should be in politics. Not everybody should be like a mayor, or not everybody should be a mechanic, right? Like there's those roles exist for specific people who are more geared towards that challenge.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the conversations my sister and I had, because she's still young, and so there's a lot of there's the mentality of, well, why can't this topic's important to me?
Yeah.
Why isn't everybody should be up in arms? Everybody should be doing this thing. And my explanation was, well, I don't think that that politics is a good fit for everybody. I certainly am not. I would not be very good at politics because, for me, I don't like taking sides. Like I want to see somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying that's not possible in politics, but at least modern day,
It's a challenge.
it's a challenge to be in the middle and for that to be the popular choice.
Right.
So I talked to her. She, obviously her being very more inclined politically, as my older sister is. She works in the State Department,
Sure.
and so it seems as though there's a theme there. And so I explained to her that and this is just my opinion, that I think that people ought to be where they believe they will serve best.
Right.
And so if I have a passion for going to, let's say shelters, animal shelters, and helping out there, and I feel a calling to that,
Yeah.
and it gives me energy to do it, that's where I should be.
Right.
If I go and I do, and I said the very great example of not everybody should do a specific thing is, how many times have you gone to different jobs where people are just there for the paycheck and they don't really care much for the work? It doesn't give them life. It actually drains them.
Yeah.
Those people quit very quickly. They stop putting in effort, not because they're bad people, but because it's not their calling. They don't get energy going there.
Right.
That's how a lot of jobs are for people. So I told her, so think of it that way. Would you want a mayor that doesn't want to be a mayor running the city?
I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, I tell people, if you do something solely for the money, you're going to earn every penny of it. It is not going to spark that passion. It's not going to be like, oh, I get to go to work. It's going to be, I have to go to work. And that, for me, that can be draining. What you were just discussing a moment ago is one of the reasons that, like, senior leaders in the military, frequently are apolitical, why they shy away from endorsing, embracing, leaning towards, certainly publicly, any aspects of the political arena, because first off, they have a lot of people following them, so they don't want to unduly influence anyone. And it's not the military's job one way or the other to say, like, this good, that bad. It is the military's job to execute the orders that have been given. So that's different than most jobs. It should be ideally apolitical, because politicized military is something that is probably not a good thing for any country anywhere. And one more thing, going back even further to what we said, I'm not going to go all the way back to
Sure.
But if you're a vet or GI active or anyone that's not a vet, and you're unfamiliar with the concept of hero's journey, because we talked about that a couple of times, as soon as this episode is over, stay in this episode, but as soon as this episode is over, do a quick Google search or a YouTube search of hero's journey. And for, particularly vets and GIs, you'll see that parallel of the cycle that so many of us go through. And it can really help, a lot of vets understand, like, that calling, and even explain it. Like, why is it that someone would take a job that separates them from family and friends? Can be incredibly hard to do. Send them, on the other side of the world, put them in danger, literally mortal danger at times, for very limited financial compensation. Like, no one is in the military for the money. And if you write all of that down on paper and just look at it as, sort of like a recruiting goal for anything other than the military, most people are going to say no. Hey, want to leave your family and friends, go thousands of miles away, go through a whole lot of training, and then be sent someplace else, maybe fight in a war, possibly get killed. And oh yeah, by the way, the pay is not going to be super great for that. Pass. So most people say. So, but for some of us, there is this sense of a calling. It's the same thing for emergency responders and, firefighters and, police. I mean, the idea of, hey, a great day is going to put out a fire is probably not a great day for a lot of people, or responding to some sort of emergency or something like that. Most people wouldn't willingly embrace that, but there are some people that go like, hey, you know what, that's my calling, that's my passion, that's the thing that I need to do. And in the hero's journey, you can help understand help people break down like why that is a thing for some people.
Yeah, that's the going back to the thing about it, so people ought to be doing what is their calling, because that's everybody here. If everybody here had found the same thing important, we wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
And that was another topic of conversation that we had. And to her point too, by the way, she did make a decent point, which was that, well, for her particularly politics, right? It's like, well, people who do have a calling to do that oftentimes have like a power thing where they want to do it because either, and this is where trauma can come in, right? Where a lot of them didn't have any control in their lives growing up, and likely and that was very much a response to our environment. It's interesting, right? That was her response to go into to change things where you couldn't change things in your home. And so a lot of times she did make that point that some people go there and they want to control things just to control things, and because it makes them feel good. And so I said, okay, yeah. And then there are people that want to fight that.
Right.
And that's their calling. And that's where they ought to be.
Right.
Because that's where they best serve.
And so the challenge is, how do we know who should be there versus just simply who is there?
Right.
So if, those of us in the military, and I think most of us have worked for or know someone that is basically, just hunting the glory. I'm going to do whatever I can to get this medal, get promotion, whatever. I'll grind through everybody. I don't care. I'll take it. And there's some that are like, hey, I'm here for the mission. I'm here to take care of my people. I want to work for the second person. I don't want to work for the first person that, someone wants a medal or wants to get promoted. If that's their primary objective, they will sacrifice everything and everyone for that primary objective. If someone is there to get the mission done and take care of their people, they will get the mission done and take care of their people. So you could have two people in the same position. One should be there, theoretically should be there, and one should not be there. So, and how we screen that out, that's a challenge. How do you determine, who should be there and who shouldn't be there?
And then that's, I think, one of those conversations that we could have for a long time. But given that we've sat here for an hour already, has it been an hour already? We definitely have. Wow, what a lot of topics to cover. I didn't think that we'd be able to get through all of them, and we didn't. So there's a lot more that there is to talk about. But before we do end the episode, given that this is the last piece of the story we've been telling, what do you want people to know?
All right, here's what I want people to know. I was thinking about this, particularly in the context of the podcast. If you thought, maybe I should go to therapy, I would say definitely go to therapy. I would say go to therapy with the expectation of, okay, maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. Finding the right fit with the client that may take a little bit of time. The people that tell you, well, therapy doesn't work or whatever, like, they certainly don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to say that 100%. They don't know what they're talking about. And it can absolutely change your life. It can change your future for the better. Therapy will not change your past. It will not undo a single thing that has happened, but it can absolutely give you the tools and the resources to cope with that and deal with it and resolve it moving forward and get you better prepared for anything in the future. So therapy isn't about undoing the past. It is about getting you better prepared for a better future. So if there were a message that I want to end with that, and also seeing the right type of therapist. If you're in family therapy, you need an individual therapist. Family therapy is not a substitute for individual therapy. So making sure that you get a good fit, what type of therapy your therapist is doing. At any given time, your therapist should be able to explain what therapy they're doing and why. So it's okay if they have an eclectic approach or they have a very structured approach, but they should be able to explain at any point what they're doing and why. And for my own self, I think I'm living proof of the benefits of therapy, and it can take you to a lot of different places. Something I have not said the entire time I've done this, and I'm taking a moment right now while I'm I'm in studio, which is super awesome, is also like, share, and subscribe. If this has helped you in any way, help somebody else with it. So having said all the things, I think that's it.
Curley Lawson, veteran of the Air Force and trauma therapist.
Yay.
Thank you for coming out.
Oh, man.
That wraps it up. It's such a great experience we've all got to do here, and we got to try something new. We always were in the business of trying stuff out and seeing what happens. And honestly, doing this the way that we have, it's been such an experience to have you here, just to culminate everything that we've been talking about from the very beginning. Jake is in the back here, and so thank you, Jake, for everything that has been making this happen. I know we don't often say that enough, and so I just want to take a moment to thank Jake for putting all this together, because oftentimes people who are off camera are doing, in my opinion, the most work. And so, Jake, thank you so much for everything. As you destroy your phone, don't worry, you can edit that out.
Probably won't.
Right. Yeah, but there's going to be many more. There's going to be many more. There's so much more stories to tell, and honestly, we aren't done in this conversation either. So I know that there's more to come, and I'm excited for it. But thank you for being.
As my man, absolutely. Thanks, and I appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Totally worth the trip coming out. So,
well, that makes me good to hear. And with that, you guys will have your episode. Thank you.